reasons to retire in your 50s before it's too late. How about that one?
Ooh, I like it.
How about this for a hook, Cory? Retire now or regret it later. Now, I want to be clear, though, on this, that this show is not advice, and we are never trying to talk somebody into retiring, but we are going to go over a nice framework to decide if you're in your 50s and you're trying to figure out why in the heck are you still working. Hopefully our framework later in this episode will help you get some clarity around your answers. But again, the idea here is you want to meet with a financial planner. The show's not advice. But the question I have, Cory, that I'd like to open it up with is that, do you think people out there that are working in their 50s are working out of passion or just out of habit? What are your thoughts when I ask that question?
I think there's a lot of people that are working out of habit. I think that finances, of course, is a big part of this, Jake. But I think a lot of it's habit. And not everybody, the truth is not everybody is super passionate about what it is that they do in their work. Good or bad, right or wrong, it's just the truth. And I think at that point, a lot of people do work out of habit.
I agree with that. It's tough for me to relate. You and I have talked about this because you and I are very lucky. Or I don't want to speak
Yes.
for you, but like I absolutely love what I do for a living. Like I don't consider this work. Like this is what I have a passion for. I feel like this is what I'm here to do, and I love it. And however, between the two of us, Cory, we've got what coming up on around 900 clients. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of conversations where clients feel that way about their work, sadly. So I do work hard to try to relate to my clients, but that is one area that I struggle to relate with them because many of them aren't passionate about they might like what they do, but it's not what they feel like their purpose is to wake up to do. So, but I also don't see this on the other side of the coin. Do you see many clients who say they should have retired sooner after they retire? Do you have that conversation a lot?
Not really, actually. No, I don't. I've had it before though, Jake. But the fact of the matter is, again, if we think about careers and employment, like it just boils down to how you want to spend your time. And I think that for a lot of people, they struggle with the decision to retire because there's a lot that comes with it. And for a lot of other people, they just don't think that they're in the position to be able to do it in the first place. But no, I actually don't think, Jake, that I work with a lot of clients who are like, gosh, I really wish I had retired a lot sooner.
Yeah, so that's the good news. Like again, I agree. I don't have a lot of clients that regret it. So, but you may.
Sure.
I mean, you would regret it if I don't know, if you worked till you're 70 and then you weren't able to go do the things you wanted to do because maybe I don't know, maybe you found out you had a bad hip and you weren't able to
Your
go.
health. Sure.
Yeah, you weren't able to go hike. You wanted to hike Mount Everest when you retired, but you worked until you're 70 and your hips won't let you hike. You know what I mean? So like, but I'm not trying to scare anybody. So again, any advisor, quote unquote advisor, that's trying to talk you into retirement, they're doing the wrong thing. They should be providing a framework like we're going to provide today, Cory, but they should also be asking you questions like, why are you working? Like, do you like what you do? And what do you do? Like, do you like your boss? Right? Do you like your coworkers? Do you like your employees? But the reality is many people in their 50s, Cory, they are rich in money. Like they've got big 401ks, but they're bankrupt when it comes to time, energy, and freedom. So if that's you and you're listening to this or watching this show and you feel like you're squeezed for time or you're always tired or you feel like you have to go do certain things, that's who this show is geared for. Is like, let's figure out how to free you up there. Because the reality is, Cory, many people out there are burned out and losing their health and they're questioning, why am I doing this anymore? Why am I working?
Yeah.
Right. And they can't return. I didn't bring this up yet, but this is a very powerful point, is that it's fear. I think is why a lot of people work, and they wrap their identity in their career, and the unknown, like you mentioned, keeps them stuck. What are your thoughts on that? I think that's really the reason people keep working in their 50s.
I agree. Absolutely. I think that's the number one reason, in my opinion, Jake, is that it's the fear of the unknown. And because we are creatures of habit and routine and practicality, like we just kind of are. And I think that we want to know what's going to happen. And it's very practical in a sense, Jake, in my opinion, for somebody to say, well, you know what? I'm not sure exactly what I would do if I stopped working. I think that I will be okay financially, but I'm not entirely sure. But what I know is that if I continue working and making money, that's not going to hurt anything. And I think that's the way that a lot of people look at it.
And they're right. And when I have clients tell me that, Cory, I don't encourage them to retire. I say, you know what? That is one approach.
That's right.
You're right. If you are scared, that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that, And so
sure.
But you got to check your ego though too. Like some people are senior vice presidents or
Mm,
they're project managers or they do manage a team. I don't care, 2 people or 200 people, and they get a lot of fulfillment in that. Like,
sure.
when you're at home, Cory, you're Cory.
That's
That's
right.
it. You're not a CFO
No,
in the
that's
Bittner
right.
household, right? You're not a
I'm running the dishwasher, right? I'm giving
yeah,
the
you're
baby
not
a
a
bottle.
co-founder.
Exactly.
You're not co-founder. You're not helping. You work with around 350 families. Like you're not helping. I mean, you're helping your wife and your daughter. Don't get me wrong, but like you're Cory at home, and some people get lost. They like going to work and knowing that they're the boss and whatever they say goes, and that's hard for some people to let go of.
Yeah.
But again, let's be clear, that's okay. But my key here, the place to start is awareness. And again, I'm going to go over a framework today, but the key is awareness. And there is a cost of waiting though. Like again, your health could diminish. You could miss out, like, you could miss out on climbing Mount Everest, like I talked about, and you could regret it. You can regret it. And again, I don't want to scare anybody here or talk them into retiring, but there may be regret if you work till 70. You may look back and say, man, I should have retired at 59 and a half. Right.
Sure.
I wasted 11 years at this stupid job that I didn't necessarily even like. And the only reason I did it was because I was complacent.
Yeah. From a long-term planning standpoint, for clients that we work with, we have to assume longevity, right, for the purpose of their plan. But that when we talk about the unknown, Jake, that's the great unknown for all of us, right? Is the expiration date. As morbid as it is. So my
Yes.
point though is that when we think about when people retire, if they work too long, if they retire too soon, or they regret not retiring sooner, I think a lot of us extrapolate that assumption too. But like the reality is not everybody lives until they're 90. Like we have to be smart and wise about how we plan. But that is a big part. I've just worked with too many clients, Jake, that have passed away in their 60s and 70s.
It's sad. Yeah. But it is reality, right?
It
I
is.
mean, life is finite. I mean, you know what I mean? So like it's not life, I guess, but like, like at some point we don't know that big unknown. So like the longer you work, if that's what you want to do and that's your purpose, then so be it. But if it's not, you have to revisit that. So retiring in your 50s, Cory, doesn't mean you stop living.
Right.
It means you start really living, right? Because we
Mhm.
want to get you aligned with that purpose. So you might have more runway to enjoy an early retirement, travel more, hobbies, relationships, and work on your health. Maybe you live longer because you retired sooner,
Yep.
to your point.
Yep.
And you and I have talked a lot about this, the go-go years, right? The go-go years are your early years in retirement. So, and they're typically when you're strongest, healthiest, you have the most money, and they're in your 50s to your mid 70s. And so, why not extend those go-go years versus shrink them, right? We want to maximize those go-go years. If again, a client's financial plan says they can retire and they can do all the things they want to
Yep.
do.
That's right.
And then, you have time now to explore these. It's very exciting for me, I guess, to talk with clients that are retiring in their 50s because they get to explore their second act passions, right? Whether
Mm.
that's getting in a camper and traveling the whole country or going to every Major League Baseball park or consulting for their company or serving on the board of a charity. It just in the end having total freedom. Like I talked to a gentleman yesterday, Cory. We offered a follow-up meeting with him. He's not a client yet, but we offered to meet with him in the morning or the afternoon. He's like, I don't get up early. He's like, I'm retired. I think he's 69 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was 68 or
Yeah.
69. And so we don't meet, by the way. We don't meet at 7 a.m. with clients. I mean, I get in early, but like, I think the meeting was like at 9, but he's like, I ain't getting up early. He's like, I used to get up at, 5 a.m. or whatever he did every day. He's like, I don't do that anymore. I sleep in. So we're like, fine, we got an afternoon appointment. You're good.
Yeah.
But he has that freedom and he's embracing it and he's enjoying that and credit to him. So that's the opportunity. That's we want our clients to retire on purpose, not just on paper, not just saying you can afford it, but really, what's your next act going to be? Do you have any thoughts on that before I go on a commercial here?
I do. So the one thing I want to say, Jake, that I'm sympathetic to this is that, and I have to draw some assumptions. I'm making some assumptions here. Is that a lot of the clients that we work with that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, I would contend, Jake, that when their careers were beginning decades ago, well, I know that they weren't watching or listening to podcasts, but I don't know how many people were telling them, you want to make sure that you pursue your passions. You want to make sure that you have a purpose in what you do. Like the world has changed a lot in that regard. So that's also why I don't think that it's not a crazy idea for people to not have a perfect answer to these questions. But the whole point of this show is to bring awareness to it, right?
Yeah, yes, you're exactly right. Here's the problem. They don't have role models.
Yep.
Because their parents worked until sadly they died usually.
Right.
My grandpa worked till he was 80.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think he lived around 90, right? So, but he had a 10-year retirement, right? My dad retired, I think, at 58,
Mm.
but he didn't have right? He's had to figure out this transition.
Yep.
Now
Navigating
my
through these
dad's in
years
his
of his life.
70s. My dad's in his 70s, which is awesome. He's had almost a 20-year retirement,
Right.
where my grandpa had like maybe 10 or whatever. So but my point is my dad didn't have a role model, right? He
Right.
couldn't say, well, my dad did it this way, so I'm going to. So he's had to learn all this stuff about purpose and embracing and what the heck he's going to do. Wake up in the Tuesday 10 a.m. test. Like my dad has had to figure, and my clients have had to figure all this out. So again, there's no shame. There is no shaming. The baby boomers don't have role models in retirement. And so it is. And so, retirement in general is scary, much alone retiring in your 50s. I mean, that's a
Right.
whole nother animal for our
That's right.
clients that are retiring in their 50s. So thank you for that, Cory. So I've got some more stories to share, but first a quick commercial. So thank you to our audience. Our subscriber count continues to grow. Please like, share our content. The whole purpose of Upticks is to enhance financial literacy. If you think our content is any good, please give us a 5-star rating and a thumbs up. Also, Cory and I are very active on social media. If you want to follow along with more of our organic content, simply follow me on Instagram at Jake_Falcon_CRPC. And Cory's is Cory Bittner KC. Also, to our loyal audience, if you want a free copy, that's right, a free copy of my best-selling book, Retiring Right, Smart Steps for Exiting Corporate America, go into the description here and you can click a link to get your free ebook. So it gets a digital copy. If you want a physical copy like me, you just go check it out on Amazon. It's out there to buy. And if you have any questions, just email Luke at falconwealthadvisors.com and Luke can direct you if you get lost out there. All right, Cory, story time. Do you have any stories that you want to share of some real world experiences with people retiring in their 50s?
I do. I have a quick story that I'll share, Jake. I work with a client that found out that he was eligible for retirement in his early to mid 50s from his employer. He worked there several decades, didn't do a lot of financial planning, didn't do a lot of planning at all, but knew how much money they needed to be able to afford their lifestyle. So I get a kick out of this because this person, Jake, found out that they were eligible.
Wait a minute, he
to
didn't
retire.
do planning, but it's a client? How come we didn't do planning for him, Cory?
Check this out. So, because it was years before I met him.
Okay. He wasn't a client.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So found out what his pension was going to be from his employer based on his retirement in the very near future. And he said, I can collect that dollar amount monthly from my pension if I retire now or if I retire soon. And benefits department said yes. He said, okay, how do I start the process to retire then? Made that decision, pulled that trigger. And what's interesting about it, Jake, is that it was several years. It was at least 5 years before he had a conversation with me or with any advisor that does what we do around planning. But the reason that I share this and that I think it's interesting.
Yeah, what's the point?
The point of this is that he knew what he needed. And I think that's actually key for somebody who's going to retire earlier, because this is my opinion, Jake. We live in a world of consumption and our economy is based on consumption, but there's always going to be more and we're always going to want more. But I think the reality for people that have retired in their 50s that don't have the regrets is that they know what they need and they know what's important to them and they also know what's not.
Good. And I hope he's benefiting now from our planning, though.
He
Cory.
is, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's worked out well for him, but and it's not what I would recommend for everyone. But it is a point about somebody making that decision earlier in life, and now it's been 10 or 15 years that he's been retired, and he's in great shape, and he's happy and content, and is traveling and doing the things that he wants to do.
Yeah, good. I got 2 stories. So I brought up my pops and this. I talked about my mom. My mom worked also, and my dad retired before her.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to my mom about her retirement goals, and they're married, obviously. And so, not obviously, but so anyway, so she was scared though. She was like, Jake, I don't know what retirement looks like. It scared the heck out of her, Cory, like really badly. And ultimately we got to a place where she decided to like open up a small, like a shop, right? Like where she sold a variety of good, like not really antiques, but like almost like a thrift store type deal. Like, so she had purpose and something to do because she was so wrapped up in her work that she was really scared of just retiring. Where my dad was like, is okay being busy, like with projects around the house and doing things. Like he has a very active mind, where my mom wanted something to draw her to be active. My point is here you have this married couple with 2 very different perspectives on retirement. Neither of which just wanted to sit at home every day, though.
Right.
Interestingly enough, like neither of wanted to do that. That was not their vision. So she was scared. We coached her through it, and then she opened up the shop, which worked out for her because she had a purpose. She had something to go to. But my point is that if you're married and you and your spouse, my point is, aren't aligned with what retirement looks like, my point is that that's okay. That's okay. But you need, in my opinion, it pays to work with someone who's experienced in this, that says, look, I've dealt with this before, and it's okay for you to have two different visions, but we got to map that out and make sure that they can work together with each other so that you're not sitting there frustrated with each other. And I'm not saying they were. I'm just saying that everyone thinks that, like, just because you're married, that you're going to have the exact same vision for retirement, and you're not necessarily.
That's right.
I have some clients, Cory, that are retired. They retired at the same time, and they spend 24 hours a day together.
Yeah.
And they love it.
That's awesome.
That's not going to be me and Rachel, by the way.
No, it's not.
That's not going to be. No, that's not. And I've got other clients who are retired, and they spend as much time together as they did when they were working. Meaning, for 8 hours a day, they're off doing their things that they want to do.
Yep.
And both couples are happily married. So, but I think it's very important that you have this conversation with your spouse. What does retirement? What do you want to do when you're? And maybe your spouse says they want to lay around and do nothing. And I'm not saying that's okay, though. But maybe they say that. But again, bringing that awareness is very important. So that's story number one. And then story number two is, I have a client. We'll call him Greg. I want to keep his name anonymous. We'll call him Greg. He retired pretty young. I don't know if he was in his 60s, but he was young, maybe 50s. I didn't go look up the details of it, but it's a great story because he retired, moved to Florida, got a job consulting, and is like making way more money than he ever could have thought of. And he has a beautiful house. He's going to live the Florida lifestyle, and he's challenging himself intellectually, but it's on his terms, right? It's what he wants to do. And so I think that's a wonderful thing. Like, he's making a ton of money, and that's not necessarily, I don't think that's why he did it, but he's actually very successful doing this consulting, like taking what he learned over his career and applying it in a more lucrative way for him. And he's loving it. And it's awesome. I love talking to him because he's like, man, I'm just making a ton of money. But he's a very intellectual guy. He's just challenging himself. And so I consider him a smart guy, and that's what he enjoys doing. So again, there's a lot of different ways to go about doing this, but I want to help people. So in all of these situations, my mom, my dad, even quote unquote Greg, they all retired to something. And that's the key here, is that you're not leaving work and just doing nothing. You're like, no, I'm going to leave A and go to B, right? And do this now. But let's talk about, the 5, we'll call it the 5 retirement ready checkpoints, right? So these are things that'll help you assess if you can retire comfortably in your 50s. Now, again, this is not advice, but you want to be able to answer all of these questions. And Cory, I hope have you help me go through them. But you want to be able to answer all of these questions. And then you also want to meet with, a qualified, licensed wealth advisor that's acting in a fiduciary capacity. Cory and I are both chartered retirement planning counselors, so this is what we specialize in. And we also have certified financial planners on our team that they are equipped to talk about these things as well. So question number one, Cory, like you said, your client now answered this, is your income plan. Can you generate substantial income from your assets? And now, a lot of people aren't so lucky to have a pension. They might have $2 million, Cory, and they have no idea how much income that's going to generate. And that's fair. How would they know that?
Right.
So we can help answer that question, though. We can tell you exactly how much income that'll generate from your investments, all based on your asset allocation and how we invest it, and dividends and bond interest and all the things. So, but that's number one. That's where you want to start. Can you generate a sustainable income from your assets? I don't care if you have 1 million or 10 million. What is that income stream going to look like from your assets? That's where you start with being able to retire in your 50s. What's number two, Cory?
The healthcare bridge. What's your plan until Medicare kicks in at age 65? And this is a huge part for people retiring sooner or retiring early, is that question. What's the plan for healthcare?
Huge, right? I mean, I would argue that's probably the number one reason that I hear people keep working.
Correct. I agree with that.
Why don't you shed some light on this, though? Why don't you talk about how easy it is to get health insurance under the age of 65 with no job? Can you explain that to our audience?
Yeah. So the Affordable Care Act, the marketplace in the United States, is an option that people have where they can sign up for healthcare that's not covered by their employer if they've retired before age 65. We have, I don't know, Jake, dozens and dozens of clients that have retired before 65 that have used the Affordable Care Act marketplace. But when it comes to that healthcare, so much of it boils down to what your income is, which is why which is the reason that it's so important to plan accordingly. But that getting coverage for healthcare is not the barrier. I think planning for the expense for healthcare is where people really need to be thoughtful.
Yeah. I think a lot of people default to that. Well, I got to work till I'm 65 because they are scared. I don't think they really know. And again, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but I'm just saying, don't let that be your default, because you can go out there and shop on that ACA and get insurance and compare that and then figure it out. If you said, look, I shopped the ACA, it's going to cost me twice as much, I can't afford that, then all right, I can get behind that. But a lot of people don't do that, and they just say that as a default. So again,
it's
it is a risk.
An assumption.
Yeah. But be clear. Let me make this clear. You should absolutely not retire without having this healthcare bridge in place, because the last thing you want to do is get sick or need health insurance, right? Or maybe you need your hip replaced. And if you don't have good insurance, you want to talk about screwing up your financial plan. That's right. One way to do it very quickly. So you got to have it, right? So number one, how do you turn your assets into income? And then two, what are you going to do about health insurance? Number three would be the tax strategy. Are you using the early retirement tax window? And what I'm talking about here is if you're 55 and you've got a 401k, you may be able to access that money prior to turning age 59 and a half without a penalty. The key here, though, if someone retires at 52, Cory, we've got to do a lot of planning, because you might not be able to access your retirement funds as easy as you think. Now, there are some complex strategies like something called the 72T or this rule of 55 that we can help you take advantage of. But the key here is like, where am I going to access the money from? And is it the most tax efficient for me and my family? And certainly we want to avoid penalties at all cost, right? You have thoughts on this one?
No, that's very good. I think the tax planning, the healthcare, the income, one, it's all tied together. But two, I think that the tax strategy for people, even some of the default choices that people make, Jake, because I agree with you that some people do make the call. I'm just going to work until 65 because I've got to pay for healthcare. If you can be wise about this and plan accordingly. I work with a client, Jake, who retired at 49 years old.
Nice. Good for them. What are they doing now? How old are they now, Cory?
Tax strategy.
How old are they now?
Coming up on 59 and a half. The magic.
So they've been a client for 10 years. What have they been doing for 10 years?
All kinds of stuff. Lots of stuff with their family. Lots of traveling. I think there's been a few ideas kicked around for actually starting their own businesses, which is a big point that I just want to mention here today, Jake, that I think the whole sort of relationship with work around, like, it's something that I have to do until I don't have to do it anymore. If people can change that and shift it towards how do I want to spend my time, that can help a lot. But again, to bring it back to this framework and the tax strategy, for somebody to retire at 49, you need to have a solid plan for what dollars you're going to have access to.
Were they clients of yours? Were they clients of yours when they did this?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Yeah, they didn't just pull the trigger and tell me about it 5 years later.
Well, that one guy did. That one guy that's a client did.
He did.
So that's why I'm asking.
No.
All right, what's number four?
All right, number four is the lifestyle vision. This is a big one. What are you retiring to? If you're walking away from your job, what are you retiring to, Jake?
Yeah, so it's all about purpose, right? So again, because you got to get this figured out too. So you got to be able to answer this question, because if you don't know and you haven't thought about it, that's a problem. If you don't know and you have thought about it, we can work with that. But the key here is you want to think about, what am I going to do on Tuesday at 10 a.m.? The Price is Right is on, but that's over in an hour. Then what are you going to do?
That's right.
You're going to eat your golden grams. Then what are you going to do?
Wait for Days of Our Lives. Wait for the soaps.
What time does that come on?
I don't know, actually. I think sometime around then. I think it's midday. But yes.
So yes, you got to figure that out. What's your lifestyle going to look like? And I would encourage a healthy, active one around community. If you're spiritual, around a faith, you want to be social in retirement. The problem with people retiring in their 50s, Cory, is a lot of their friends are still working. So you've got to understand that if you're the lucky one that can retire at 52 or 49 or 58, whatever, and a lot of your coworkers can't, then you got to recognize, what am I going to do for social? Because you might have to get new friends.
Right.
And that's hard for a lot of people.
It is. And you want to keep, you mentioned this earlier, Jake, but you also just want to keep your brain engaged.
Yes.
Right. You really do. And that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But that is something that I've noticed from clients that retire younger.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yep. Yeah.
So you got to use that brain power. All right. Number 5. Yeah, I've already kind of alluded to this one, so it's a little bit of a merge, but that withdrawal flexibility. Do you have enough liquidity outside of retirement accounts? So I talked about making sure you can access your retirement if you need to. Like if you're 54 and you can retire at 55 and it's going to free up, that's a strong consideration we try to make for our clients. But my big thing, if I meet with younger people that want to retire early in their 50s, I tell them build the brokerage, build the brokerage, build the brokerage, and then build that brokerage some more. That's ultimate flexibility, liquidity. And so I'm a big fan of having money in non-retirement assets. You would think me being a retirement counselor, I would only know about 401ks, IRAs, and Roth IRAs, but no. I'm a big fan of brokerage. I personally build up my brokerage. I try to build it up just as fast as my retirement account so that I have flexibility, right? And that's the key here. And so building that liquidity up, I don't care if you've got CDs or a high yield savings account, just build it up. Build up that liquidity if you want to retire in your 50s, which is really good, So again, quick recap on that. Income plan. How are you going to turn your nest egg into income? What are you going to do about health insurance? Number 3, how are you going to manage the taxes? What are you retiring to? Number 4. And then number 5, do you've got some liquidity, some buffer in there outside of your IRA or 401k? All right, Cory, here we go. Time to bust a myth. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I have to wait until 65. I already talked about this a little bit. So what do you think about that? Or 62 or some other magical number? What do you think?
Why? Why do you have to work until then? Why do you have to work until you reach some magic number?
Well, they say because 65 is the default retirement age according to Medicare.
Well, if you want to live a default life.
Wow.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that is very much a myth, right? We just talked about clients that have retired in their 40s, their 50s, everywhere in between, that have healthcare coverage, that are not destitute, that have planned for what they want their life to look like. And that right there is the myth. I recognize, though, that, costs are high, right? The lifestyle for everybody is a bit different. But I think, Jake, the framework that you just laid out, those 5 steps about your income plan, healthcare, tax, the checkpoints, that's right. As far as those checkpoints go, if you can work through those checkpoints, I would argue that almost regardless of your age, if you can work through all of those things and map it all out and plan it all out, that you don't need to worry about what the default retirement age is, because you know what your plan looks like and what's important to you and how it's all going to work.
Yeah, good, Cory. Yeah, you're right. So age 65 for Medicare, age 62 for Social Security. These are all just legacy constructs, Cory, from a 20th century system, right?
Correct.
This is something that it was invented basically in the 1900s, and you don't need to subscribe to that. You're not necessarily retiring, because that's a problem. Social Security tells you you're retiring early. So you're not retiring early. You're just not retiring late. How about that one?
There you go. Yeah, and that's a different way to put it.
It should just be on your number, according to your financial plan and your goals and your family situation and what you want to see happen. This is about you.
That's
not about some arbitrary number that's thrown out there that the government deemed the appropriate time. It's not what it should be. And if you want to work till you're 80, like my grandpa, so be it. My plan says 70, Cory. I want to retire at 70. I love what I do. I don't know at this point, I'm 44 years old. I don't know what I would do at 55 if I retired. I don't know what I would do. I
don't know what you would do either, Jake.
I want to do this.
I know. So real quick though, let's just talk about this, because I think this is a good time for it. Like some of these default ages, like retiring early from Social Security at age 62, the Medicare age, or just the way that we want to compare ourselves all the time to other people and their situations. What your parents did, what your cousins did, what your siblings, what your coworkers are planning for, that we cannot stress enough that it doesn't matter what they all did. It does not matter. It's helpful to kind of give you a perspective of reality, but what really matters is your own situation. And I don't think that we can really stress that enough, because people want the answer. They see somebody else that did this or that, but you need to bring it back home, because no one's going to live your life except for you.
Exactly. And so the big takeaways here, and then I've got a quick side note here. The big takeaways that retiring in your 50s or 60s or 40s is about freedom, flexibility, and legacy, right? What you want to see happen here. Like I mentioned, the 5 checkpoints, they give you some confidence to get the ball rolling. Still, you need to meet with a financial planner, though. I don't want you if you're do-it-yourselfer, so be it. But again, you got to start at those 5, but that's not where it ends. That's the starting point.
That's right.
But you don't need to wait until some government tells you to retire at 65 or 62. You do it when it's on your terms.
That's right.
Your financial plan and your goal. So that's good. That's kind of my quick recap. And a quick offer again. So if you're listening to this or watching this and you're in your 50s and you've got over $1 million saved, but you don't know, if and when you can retire now or in the next 1 or 2 years, just simply email Luke at falconwealthadvisors.com and put in the subject line, retire in your 50s plan. And we're happy to take you through our signature planning process on a complimentary level. Those are 2 meetings where we'll help you crunch the numbers. We'll talk about all of these items and help you develop a plan to see if you can retire in your 50s. So again, got over $1 million. You're going to retire now or in the next few years and you're in your 50s. Email Luke at falconwealthadvisors.com. And Luke is happy to arrange a meeting with myself or Cory. But real quick, Cory, as we wrap up today's show, I want to talk about the FIRE movement. You know what that is?
I do.
Financially independent, retire early. These are these extremists out there, Cory, that want to retire like at 35, right? Or 45. Now, I come across these individuals occasionally, and most times they don't realize what they need to do. So I try to educate them on what it really is going to take. A lot of times, though, they're pretty interesting people where they're like, I'm going to live off $2,000 a month, and they've already been living off $2,000 a month, and they can live off $2,000 a month. So I just want to get your take on that. Or another one I think is kind of cool is some people are retiring at 35 and like not working for 5 or 10 years, and then they're going back to work at like 45, right? And then they may be retired again at like 60. So they're having prolonged periods of not working, which I actually think is okay also. But the key here is these people have a plan and they review it. That's the key. They don't just do it on a whim. You have thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's good. I have always, and maybe incorrectly here, Jake, but I've correlated the sort of FIRE movement, retire early. Goes back to the relationship with work that I mentioned earlier, that if people just treat employment and work as something that I only want to do it for as few years as I have to before I don't have to do it anymore. Like I'm 36, right? I think about if I was retired, Jake, at 35, I have no idea what my life would look like or what I would be doing. And I recognize that I'm different from the next person, but also recognize that, if you're going to plan to retire in your 30s or your 40s, this financial independence, retire early, just be flexible and recognize that things are going to change and that, someone's ability to live on $2,000 a month today might not be the same 10 years from now.
Right.
Or 20 years from now.
Right.
And people get married, they have families. I mean, again, it's all individual, but my perspective is like, if your goal is to retire as soon as you can and live off as little as money as possible for the majority of your life, think that through and plan for it.
Yeah. Good. All right, Cory, we got to wrap up. So thank you as always for joining me as my permanent guest. And thank you all for tuning in to Upticks. We hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website at www.falconwealthadvisors.com and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.